Welcome everyone to our grant writing info session. My name is Mohammed and I am joined with Ryan Knight. So let's get started. So before we begin this session, we just want to go through some quick Zoom etiquette. First, we would like everyone to change their name to the name that they registered with. This is just so we can identify them easier. You can also turn on your camera if you wish to do so. You can raise your hand if you have any questions, and to show respect to everyone in the room as well. You can also use the chat if you have any questions, and also everyone to mute their mic. This is just to avoid any background sound that will interrupt the meeting. Also, we would like to acknowledge the First Peoples and traditional lands. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples of all the land that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. So please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the effect of residential schools and colonialism on Indigenous families and communities, and to consider how we are and can each in our own way try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So a little bit about Empowered4X. Empowered4X is a business consulting firm. We support all entrepreneurs by providing co-working and business service memberships, as well as training and consulting. We can help you with business planning, operations, financial projections, bookkeeping, grant writing, and marketing strategies. We have various offerings depending on where you are in your journey from ideation to scaling up. If you want to learn more or connect with us, please visit our website at empowered4x.com or email us at connect@empowered4x to set up a discovery call. So here's a brief list of some of the training programs we offer at Empowered4X. First, there's the Social Enterprise Certification Program, the Mental Health Standard Certification, the Mental Health Supporting Youth Certification, and the Grant Hunter University. So here's a list of some of the services we offer at Empowered4X. First is our virtual offices that we have at 3 different locations: Ottawa, Scarborough, and Brampton. This is where you can obtain a professional address, business support, among many other things, as well as marketing, grant writing, technology, and management related services. Lastly, we offer BizGrams, which is a promotional live show meant for entrepreneurs to promote their business. So some of our upcoming events include our frequent grant writing info sessions, the DIY to Modify series, our monthly Jelly social networking and financial literacy events. And you can also follow this QR code right here later if you wish to register for any of these events. So this is a brief timeline of how we work with our clients in regards to grant writing. First, we have the DIY grant info sessions and the Grant Hunter U, which is a course for social enterprise business owners and nonprofit founders that are on their hunt for grants and would like a guided checklist to help along the way. Along the way, we also have the funding summary, and this is where one of our specialists look for dedicated grants or grants that are specific to that specific client, which they can apply for. Clients may also work alongside us to complete the grant writing blueprint. And for clients that write the grant application themselves, our team is willing to review it for them, and the cost would vary based on the size of the grant and the amount of work that goes into it. The other one is the working groups. This is where the client can come into a physical space or a Zoom room and they write the grant, but a grant writing expert would work alongside them throughout the whole process. And the last process is the Modify series, which is make others do it for you. This is where clients that are interested in a grant can have one of our grant writers write the grant for them. And the cost can vary between $500 to $2,000 depending on the size of the work. So before we go on, we would just like to give a quick shout out to our sponsors and partners like One Full Circle, SETC, Calabash, Toronto Community Benefits Network, Dream Legacy Foundation, Sheridan College, Alternative Savings, and Zedisi. So here's today's agenda. You will meet with our key facilitator, Ryan, where he will give you an overview of the grants and how we can help you along your journey. So now I would like to introduce you all to Ryan Knight, our key facilitator. Ryan is a serial social entrepreneur who started a few social enterprises, namely Detailing Nights, but also Service Kingdom, Executives Power Up, and Black Panthers Cage. He is also the co-founder of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, where he works with entrepreneurs of Afro and Caribbean heritage to help them figure out what stage they're in and to help them grow exponentially. So now I would like to pass it on to him.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks so much, Mohammed. And welcome, everyone. Brand new year. Happy New Year. I'm hoping that for yourself, for me, 2022 was more of that filter to filter out anything that is not propelling me forward and to really use 2023 to be very focused. And of course, getting grants and funding is something that I'm very focused on. So I'm glad that you're here to take this journey with me, and I hope that we can help you along the way. A bit of history of ACBN. We started 5 years ago, and it was really to fill a gap that I was seeing as an entrepreneur. I run a company called Detailing Nights, as Mohammed mentioned. And when I was looking to expand and looking to grow through franchising, there were no Black focused business organizations to really tap into to be able to help me with that mandate. So we brought 6 other entrepreneurs together. We said, could we create this entity that would sit down with an entrepreneur, figure out what stage they're in, and then help them grow their companies exponentially? Thus, ACBN was born. You can go to the next slide. So over the past 5 years, we've been able to engage with over 5,000 Black entrepreneurs. We're seeing a lot of female entrepreneurs getting into this space and looking for support. So happy that we're here to provide that. But what I'm most proud of is being able to partner with other Black focused business organizations. As I mentioned, there was very few 5 years ago, and now there's over 40 across Canada that we've been able to partner with. So any entrepreneur that comes to us with needing support for their business, we're able to either provide it internally or at least get them to the right place. So get them to the right entity that can support them. Next slide. So a few of the pillars that we stand on, and I would say entrepreneurship and economic inclusion is more of the foundation. That is where we really build from. I believe entrepreneurship is one of the best tools that we have to create economic inclusion. And when we talk about economic inclusion, it's more from a perspective of empowerment. So not just trying to figure out how to dismantle anti-Black racism so people will let us in, but us creating our own alternatives, our own tables, so that we can be self-sustaining. And that to me is true empowerment. So ACBN, of course, with the convening, we love to share notes and bring you behind the scenes on things that we're successful with, things that I'm successful with the business, and really provide those resources to you so that you can use it for your company and you're not starting from scratch. So I'm going to be talking a lot about templates and sharing notes as we go along, because we have been successful with some things. So those are the things that we want to present to you so that you could also be successful with it as well. And when I say successful, I'm talking about that last pillar, access to funding. In every research study that you've seen, I feel like our community has been researched to death, but it does always come out that we need access to funding, and there's certain barriers in place that prevent us from getting the capital that we need. So for ACBN, we were able to create our own internal microloan program. Again, we're always looking to raise more dollars for that program so we can be lending it to entrepreneurs that need it and traditionally can't get it through the traditional banks or even other programs that might have a Black entrepreneur title, but it's still as frustrating as ever. But I digress. We can save that for when the recording stops and I'll tell you the whole story. But what I'm noticing, oh, it's actually, you can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, I like to show this slide and we should actually update it because recently we were able to, towards the end of through 2022, I believe we got just over 600,000 in funding for the nonprofit ACBN, and also Detailing Nights was able to get 250,000 for the for-profit. And these aren't just loans, some of them are grants, some of them are loans, but the list shows you the breadth of types of capital that is out there. It ranges from pitch competitions up to city grants, provincial grants that we've been able to obtain, and even federal grants, and also sponsorship from corporations. So not just being, don't feel like you have to see one grant and put all your eggs in that basket. There are many ways to get capital for your for-profit and also your nonprofit. And these are some of the ones that we've been successful with. So when I talk about a template, we use this learning to support you in your process. So we've been successful with some, we definitely want to share. I think most of these are still around, like the TD Ready Commitment, Toronto Enterprise Fund, we're going to talk about that, supporting Black Communities Initiative, the Ecosystem Fund, that was something specific, but hopefully that gets renewed. But City Grants, Youth Opportunities Fund, we're going to talk about that. That's coming up again. So these are options for you to now get funding. And of course, you can rely on us to share our notes so that you'll be further ahead and not starting from scratch. Next one. And when I mentioned, I get more excited about other organizations that we've helped getting funding. And so, like I mentioned, we want to get your name on this list and keep adding to it. So organizations such as Rescue Youth International, where they weren't as successful as they should be in getting grants because they're doing such great work with their youth programs that support youth in the education and justice system. But when we were able to partner with them, it was to now identify what type of social enterprise could they create that would generate revenue and allow them to go after the investment readiness program. They were successful with that, actually started a food truck out of it that could create revenue to support their nonprofit. The other side of the spectrum, where social enterprise can be a nonprofit starting a business, or like Custodia's case, a for-profit company that operates as a social enterprise because they're working with seniors in the community and supporting them with landscaping so that they can live longer in their house. So again, helping them identify that this grant exists, and they were successful with their application. And shout out to Ottawa and Brenda with New Life Project. Again, not being as successful with grants as they should be, us being able to work with them to get applications in. This one that they were successful with was the Supporting Black Communities Initiative. And now, because they got the initial grant, they're able to go back to another, I think SBCCI had 2 other add-ons. So getting your foot in the door is really important because that usually opens you up to more funding. So if you're thinking of starting a nonprofit or you're running one and haven't gotten grants, or maybe this is the first time you're writing a grant, definitely try not to start from scratch. Talk to the team at Empowered4X or myself, and we'll talk about how to get in contact with us at the end. But don't go at this alone because it took myself a lot of trial and error to get successful with getting grants for the business and the nonprofit. And again, I don't consider myself an academic PhD grant writer. I more consider myself a grant hunter. So always out there looking for what grants are available and then learning from any grant that I apply for and I don't get, really understanding what went wrong, how to improve, and using all of those revisions and edits to strengthen all the future applications. And then when they're successful, definitely using that as a template. And again, sharing notes so we can use those successful templates with the community at large. You can go to the next slide. All right. So we're not touching too much on the business plan blueprint today, but similar concept where we at Empowered4X help people with their business plan. So if you do need support with that, definitely reach out. We're more going to touch on the grant writing blueprint. So I call it the blueprint because when you write a grant, you'll notice that a lot of the grants ask the same questions. So you want to be able to take those answers, save them into a Google document, and then use it for any grant that you find. Again, about 80, a lot of times maybe 80 to 90% of the questions are the same, and then you just have to customize it to the funder. So I talk a lot about the blueprint, and as I go through, if I mention it, it's because any answers that you write to any grant that you find, you have to make sure that you save those answers and add to it and adjust it and make it better instead of every grant that you find, you're starting from scratch. So actually, you can go to the next slide. And one just to touch on before we head into some of the grants that are available right now, the Business Benefits Finder is a great resource that the federal government created. So for your business, you're able to go to this link, and when you get the slides, the link is active, so you can click on it, go to the website, you fill out, like you answer questions by filling in the blanks, and it then gives you a breakdown of all the federal options that support businesses, whether they're grants or wage subsidies or just resources, and even some loan programs that your business can get. That link will walk you through all the ones that your business qualifies for. So we'll make sure that that's included uh, in the email after this session. All right, next slide. Sweet, sweet. All right, actually, I will continue to share. Share. So before I jump into some of the grants that are available, let me pause just ever so slightly to see if there's any questions. If not, I will jump in. All right, actually, I'll come back to this one after. So the first one I did want to talk to is the Black Opportunity Fund. You'll notice that they've started doing loans for businesses, but they also have a grant program. So where is, oh, I think this thing is blocking it. All right, so if you come to this website, you'll see they have their funding programs. Actually, I'll put this link into the chat so that you have it. All right, so you can check this out when you have time. But the main grant that they've seen, so they do grants for nonprofits, as you'll see. They had a health-focused one. They did have a grant for restaurants in the Black community. They have a Scholars Award, and this is the loan program that I was talking about. So if you are open to getting a loan for your business, definitely check out their BOF Black Business Loan. But the entrepreneur program is the one that they created in partnership with CIBC and the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. So it's the overarching loan program through CIBC where you can get $250,000 for your business. But if you're not quite ready for the loan, or you need support with doing your business plan or cash flow projections, or let's see, or improving your credit score, you can actually go through their grant program where you get access to, I think there's 7 different programs that the chamber offers, and you're able to get up to $2,000 as a grant for your business. So there's one path where you can go through CIBC. Actually, I'll show you really quick. If you go to apply now, it takes you to CIBC's portal where now it talks about the loan side of it. But if you go through the actual process, let's see, it'll ask you specific questions about how your readiness for a loan. Oh, did I click it properly? Let's see. All right. So after you put in your contact info, it does ask you about if you have your financial statements ready or if you have a business plan. So if you answer no to any of those 2 questions, that's where they refer you back to the Black Chamber of Commerce and the Black Opportunity Fund to go through the grant program, which is connected to these services that I mentioned. Oh. All right. So yes, helping you with your financial literacy, helping you with your credit score, getting your business plan done, or your cash flow projections done. But if you wanted to go just directly into the grant program, you can actually go to elevateblackbusiness.ca. I think I have it open here. And when you go to elevateblackbusiness.ca, it should be at the top. So they have all the different program. Oh, actually, it's on the main page. So you can just enroll directly into it. So if you're not interested in the loan and just interested in the grant, you can go directly into the Black Chamber of Commerce, enroll here, and then ask them about which program you need and ask them about the CBCC grant program, and you'd go directly in. All right. I did see a question. Is there a cost associated with looking to join your local Chamber of Commerce? Yes. So Chambers of Commerce do have a membership fee, and also the boards of trades also have membership fees. All right. So the next one I did want to touch on is Digital Main Street. So I had been talking about Digital Main Street for quite some time, and they had opened up registration, gone through, I think, 4 months of programming, and were dispersing grants of up to $10,000, which is their RAISE program. Then it kind of went on pause. So when it went on pause, they first opened a wait list, and then the wait list button disappeared. So up until the end of 2022, you weren't able to apply for it anymore. But what I'm hearing is January the 16th, the RAISE program is going to open back. So it's in partnership with the Parkdale Center. So the Parkdale Innovation is who administers the cohort. So from beginning to end, you would create an account here on Digital Main Street. You're able to fill out the initial application. That connects you with Parkdale. So Parkdale now has their own process, like their own application. It's not as long, but their own form to fill out. Then you would get signed up for a cohort. And with that cohort, you would then finish your programming, apply for the grant, and you're able to get 10,000. So all that to say, there is actually a video that we did that walked right through the whole process. So Mohammed, remind me if there are people interested in seeing from beginning to end the process of applying to Digital Main Street. So when it opens on the 16th, you'd kind of have a guide. We can definitely get that video to you. It was a while ago, so I'd have to dig into the crates for that. But you'll see what you're able to use the money for. So you can get expertise, you can get marketing communication. So that's print media, signage, and promotional ads. You can go through a digital transformation. So building your website or doing digital like automation for some of your processes and even digital marketing. You can get POS systems and business related materials. You can go through training and update the disability support, let's say on your website or your processes. Some of the ineligible stuff, just to give you a heads up. So it can't be related to ongoing operational costs. You can't get additional computers or cell phones. So, I mean, the list is here. You can definitely check through it. But first things first would be to create an account. If you already have an account and if you've already applied to Digital Main Street, now would be a good time to send them an email. So I believe it's programs@parkdaleinnovation.ca. Don't quote me, I'll get the actual email for you in a sec. But email them, just say like, hey, my application's already in. Wanted to check if it's opening back anytime soon. I'm hearing it's supposed to be mid to late January, and get a response directly from them. So that way you don't have to go through the whole process again. If you've already done it, just check in with the emails that you've gotten.
Somebody has a question in the
Oh,
in the
sure.
chat.
Which one?
Well, Festivac, hello,
Oh,
when you
when
are
you're new. Okay, when you're new as a nonprofit, what is the best advice to share when starting to apply for funding? All right. Or it needs first to build your portfolio, working experience, get references to get a grant. As a nonprofit, you definitely want to start, you want to have momentum. So it's not usually grants. I have never seen where you could get the grant to start from scratch. Like you have to show some sort of activity happening in the community, which is a tricky catch 22 because now you're really working from your own pocket to do the work that you want to do to get track record in order to get funding. The Youth Opportunities Fund and the Loblaws Foundation is more for grassroots. So they more fund ideas. So I would definitely look at those two options because you're able, actually, I'll pull up Laidlaw Foundation. Let's see if they have anything active right now. Oh, actually, we'll just click this one. Because even though they'll fund an idea, they still want to see the community work that you've been engaged in. So let's say you've been working at a nonprofit and then wanting to now take a project and run with it or start it from scratch, they would fund it. Let's see what this is. Oh, is this how? Oh, it's so good. All right. So the Youth Action Fund doesn't say if it's active or not. Youth CI, let's say organizations and communities. Okay, so let's see where you go to it. So yeah, Laidlaw I know is more youth focused, but I would still, because they do have grants for other options. Let's see. Oh, it does say apply now. Okay, for 2022. So it hasn't opened back for 2023, but when they do have their next information session, that's where you want to ask how much traction do you already need to have in the community? Because for Laidlaw Foundation and the Youth Opportunities Fund, if you're already active and incorporated and running the nonprofit, it wouldn't qualify because they're more focused on grassroots. So if you're really new and have this idea and have your core team, Laidlaw and the Youth Opportunities Fund are good options. If you're incorporated and already operating, that's where the Ontario Trillium Foundation or specific grants through the Ontario government would come into play because they want to see that you've been incorporated for at least 2 years and operating and have a budget. And then if you're looking to scale as well, those would be the options. So actually, I'll put this link into the chat for you so you can check it out. But to answer your question, definitely start the work as best you can. What I typically recommend to people is finding organizations that match your vision, have the same mission, so that you can work alongside them. A lot of times, those nonprofits, if they're bigger, they would have a budget already, and you can now offer your services, be part of their budget line items, so that you can get that experience in what you want to do. So, for example, I was running detailing nights. At a time, we had this idea of how to teach youth entrepreneurship in the community. So students would run a mini version of our company and we would teach them entrepreneurship by pretty much running a small business. So when I started to go for grants, what helped us is being able to work with a nonprofit called Skills for Change that wanted to start a youth entrepreneurship program. So we pretty much took our curriculum and layered it into that nonprofit to start teaching the youth in their programs entrepreneurship. Then we were able to go for a grant on our own and use that experience that we had with the nonprofit to be successful with the grant. When we had just applied and said, hey, we're doing this thing kind of on the side of our desk, we weren't funded. When we were able to show execution of it through a nonprofit and have their buy-in, that helped us get the bigger dollars. All right. We will be sharing the deck and providing link. Yes, Mohammed will be, once it's rendered, we'll send that email out to everybody that registered with the slide deck and also this recording. So that will definitely be coming to you. Oh, and I think you just put it in the chat. All right. And again, if there's any other questions, feel free to pop it into the chat and I'll address. But I did want to kind of go deeper into the Youth Opportunities Fund and other grants that are through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. So they released their list of grants. This is not. Wait a minute. I think my screen is frozen. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, Ryan, we can still hear you.
Oh, okay, cool. It's just my computer is on overdrive right now. All right. So a couple things to prepare yourself for if you're dealing with the Ontario Trillium Foundation. One, the process is very competitive. So a lot of people apply through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. What I recommend to people is do what I did, is find a nonprofit. So I guess there's two paths here. If you're a for-profit company, you absolutely need to find a nonprofit to work with because the Ontario Trillium Foundation is specifically for nonprofits or grassroots organizations. So there's two options. One is if you pull out the community work that you do based on your business and create its own grassroots entity, you could apply for the Youth Opportunities Fund. It's a bit tricky because you're running your business and you're doing this community work. And so you really have to speak to the community work on its own in its own kind of bubble to be able to apply because they don't fund for-profit companies. On the other side, if you're a for-profit, you want to partner with a nonprofit that has a similar mission to you. So that's similar to what we did with Skills for Change to say, hey, we both have the same mission of eliminating youth unemployment by introducing entrepreneurship to youth under 30. So by having them on board, but we didn't have them lead the grant. We actually just pulled the curriculum and created the grassroots organization. But what you could have done, and what we've done in previous with ACBN and the company, is let the nonprofit lead and the for-profit execute budgetary items. So if you're a person that does youth counseling, so let's say ACBN is going for a grant with Trillium, and we need to deliver youth counseling to the participants, ACBN, instead of, I guess, hiring a staff member to do the counseling, we would hire a company to come in and do the counseling. So if you're a company that does counseling, then you would be that line item that could execute within the grant. So being able to partner with nonprofits that are already going for funding, but that are also trying to execute what you have the expertise to do, now you can become that line item in the grant. And that way, it's money that you may not have been accessible to you, but now you're able to open up. So I always say, like, there's a lot of money flowing. We need to position ourselves in front of that flow of money. And another thing, if you have services for nonprofits, because you'll see in 2023, all of these grants are going to be flowing, you should be reaching out to nonprofits that are going to be applying for these grants and say, hey, I can offer these types of services for you. So if it's not even specific to the grant, it's, I don't know, capacity building or professional development or even accounting, legal. I mean, nonprofits need to actually get stuff done. So be sure to reach out to them as you see that they're going for money. And you'll see this Resilient Communities Fund. This one you're able to get, okay, up to 2,000, so up to 100,000 max per year. This was due February 1st. So something like this, where if you're a for-profit, you might not be able to, well, you can't apply for it, but you could work with a nonprofit to support them in what they're doing. They're doing capital grants. So that's where nonprofits are going to be able to actually do renovations. And I'm not sure if you can purchase land and buildings, but you can definitely like improve them. So actually, I'm looking forward to see what the restrictions are on this one for this year. Let's see what else we got. We got the Economic Recovery and Resilience Fund. This one is a one-time program. I'm gonna click on that one in a sec. Let me just check. They didn't say the Community Services Recovery Fund. Oh, they didn't talk about the Youth Opportunities Fund. So let's see. what does economic recovery and resilience fund? Because this is where it's interesting that you'll see the nonprofit space talk about economic recovery, where those that are in the like entrepreneurship and economic should be at least part of the conversation. So this is where now you can reach out to organizations and you can even say like, hey, ACBN, I see that you're part of this economic recovery space. I have services, or I have whatever your expertise is that could help with economic recovery. Include me in what you're doing. So this is where you want to find what types of organizations would go after a fund like this so that you can be part of their solution instead of nonprofits that don't really know what they're doing trying to aid in economic recovery. So let's see. Oh, someone is closed. Why is it closed? You just said that it's open. Okay. So this was happening, from like September 28th. So now, if it's already closed, that means people's projects are starting January 3rd. I wonder if they put out a list of who got money. They may not have put it out yet. I'm actually very curious. So let's see if we can find a press release about this. Oh, here's something. Here we go. So we want to see who got the loot. Somali Center, Urban Res, Future Black Female, Black History Ottawa. These are organizations that are nonprofits that are focused on economic recovery. So if you're able to aid in that space, I would reach out to these organizations to say, hey, these are services that I can offer. Okay. Back on track. So like I said, there is the Youth Opportunities Fund. I'm a big fan of, not only because it's one of the first grants that I was able to get as a for-profit company. Well, technically not a for-profit company. It was the grassroots organization that I created, but it allows you to test ideas. So we've been able to get this multiple times because we have things that we're doing in the community that are working. You can take those ideas, put it into an application, and be able to get it through the Youth Opportunities Fund. I don't think they said exactly when it's opening back, but they usually run it a couple times a year. So let's see. Okay. So yes, this year it's going to be the expression of interest deadline is August the 23rd. And then they'll ask successful applicants to do a full submission, which would be due November 1st. And again, this is where when we're dealing with grants, the timelines are very they can be very long timelines between when you first apply to when you get the funding. So it's not ideal to rely on grants, especially for operations. You want to be able to be generating revenue. I would say going after loans and leveraging capital in that sense for scaling up the business, and then using grants almost as like the bonus, because now that work that you're doing in the community, you're able to get grants to amplify it. But with operating the business, you want to look something more at either microloans or also something like Digital Main Street that will help you improve sales and grow the company. But again, you don't want to dismiss the grants because they're definitely there. People are getting this money. So you want to be part of this conversation. So when August 23rd comes around, your application's in. When November 1st comes around, again, your application's in. But look at this. So you're going to apply in August of this year, but money is probably not going to flow until February of 2024. So you want to factor that into your timeline of events so that your cash flow if you're relying on grants, it's going to be very tight. So you want to be able to make sure that your cash flow is on point. All right. I do know time is running away, but I wanted to leave space for questions. Let me see which other one.
Somebody has a question in the chat.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
It says, I'm out of work due to disability. My employer could not or would not provide accommodations for me to do my work. Therefore, I want to create a foundation to help individuals with my condition. However, I cannot do all the work myself. Moreover, there are skills I lack. How can I recruit 2 people to work with me when my funds are low?
Yes. So this is where I would start with identifying which organizations exist around that space so that one, you can kind of see what they do. And if there's things that they're not able to do, you could lend, like you could fill the gap. Because now recruiting 2 people into an entity where they're going to be volunteers and not get paid, you definitely have to sell the vision. So it's a bit trickier to pull people into something from scratch where you can lend your services to something that's operational. And then once you build up some momentum, be able to branch off on your own, or I would say just grow with them. So if there's nobody doing what you want to do, then again, you really have to sell that vision to let people know this does not exist. It needs to exist. And I need people that have my back to start this. And again, we're going to grow it together. And you can identify some of the grants that are currently out there that you're going to go after. But it does take, you have to be that CEO, you have to be that visionary to sell the vision to these 2 people that will not be getting paid in the short term. So it can be done. Hey, ACBN started like that. We had a breakfast that where there was no breakfast, and we just brought people together and said, "Hey, this is what we're thinking. If you feel it's a good idea, this is the direction that we're going." They came with us. It took 2 to 3 years for people to actually start getting paid, but we were able to get there. But they believed in the vision and the mission, so they were able to lend their time. And again, you can't expect too much of people that are just volunteering as well. You're going to be the one with the vision. And if this is something that now is going to become your livelihood, you have to get really serious about how you approach getting grants. And quicker dollars is actually through sponsorships from corporations. So identifying corporations that believe in this mission as well to reach out to them to say what you're building would get you funds maybe a bit quicker than grants. And of course, the community, I'm a fan of GoFundMe to say like, hey, this is something that is missing in our community. I'm raising dollars to be able to do X, Y, Z, and let the community fund what you're doing, at least in the short term, while you're waiting for grants to come in. All right. So you mentioned it's only in Europe. You can definitely work with European organizations. Some of the elements that ACBN does is pulled from a US organization where they, have you ever heard of Operation Hope with John Hope Bryant? Yes, he runs a very big entrepreneurship. Oh man, like he inspires people to get into entrepreneurship and inspires them to build out their financial capabilities. So a lot of what he does, we pulled elements from that into Canada, and that helped us fast track because there was a blueprint that existed that was working on a bigger scale. So we were able to pull those elements to execute them in Canada. You could do the same thing. And I would reach out to those European organizations to say, hey, what you're doing is vital, but it's not happening here in Canada. Is there anything that you can do to aid me in bringing these resources to Canada or these expertise to Canada? And I'm sure they'd be more than happy to share a bit of what they've done, maybe even offer some volunteers to support you in the startup, but definitely an option there. All right. Oh, actually, we can switch back to the presentation. I'll stop sharing. If you wanted to pull up the final slides, Mohammed. All right, so you can go to the next one. All right, so as I said, try not to stress yourself out with trying to research and write grants and try to find the money. If you're finding that it's difficult, definitely reach out to Empowered Forex, have an initial consultation to see where you're at and what supports might work for you. Next slide. Oh, yes, this is my mantra. We do exist to see the community win, especially entrepreneurs and executive directors. And I, again, allow us to share our notes with you. That if this type of service or people were willing to do info sessions and webinars about how they got money existed back in, when did I get that first one? 2015. I feel the journey to getting grants would have been a lot smoother. And right now, this is what we're trying to do is make that process smoother for you. And it takes time because again, that grant timeline, but once you get the flow of it, once you start to get those initial grants, it definitely becomes easier as you go. Even though the grant space is very competitive, you don't want to always be starting from scratch. So we want to be here to support you on that. Next slide. All right, here's some examples of the services that are offered. If you want to go more at your own pace with our online university, that's Grant Hunter U. If you wanted a person just to take it completely off your plate and write it for you, you'll see the grant application writing is between 500 to 3,000, depending how complex the grant is. But wherever you are, you can kind of pick what services that you do need. Or if you just need to talk to somebody and say like, hey, this is where my head is at, I'll put the link to my calendar in the chat, and also Empowered Forex's information will be put in so that you can reach out, ask questions, and then see what's right for you. Next slide. Sweet, sweet. So again, I'm super excited to work with you. If anything is on our radar for 2023, it must be capitalizing our businesses and our nonprofits. We have such great ideas, but the thing that I always remember that hampered my growth is my vision not matching my bank account. So we have to help improve our bank accounts. Grants are a great way. Loans are an option. We have our own microloan that we can support with, but looking at even angel investments, sponsorships, VC funding, all the different options, pitch competitions. Let's put everything on the table and see what sticks. And then we want to be there for you on that journey. So reach out to us. I will put my link of my calendar. Where did I put it now? Into the chats if you wanted to book time. You'll notice there's two options. There's a free option, the ACBN Advisor. Oh, wait, where's my chat? So you do have to be a member of ACBN. So if you're not a member and you book it, it will ask you to fill out the business needs assessment, which gets you a free membership. But we definitely want to support you and you can ask questions. If you just want to skip that, you can pay for the, what's it called? The Clarity funding meeting. It's only $25, but it'll give you time to just sit down with me, figure out what support grants are out there, and you can ask your questions. But before I wrap up, and just before I open it up for questions, I did want to let you know tonight we have an amazing presenter talking about how to scale up and amplify our businesses. His name is Tim Prey, and I'll grab the link to that session. Why can't I scroll? Oh, here we go. So if you're not busy at 6:30, here's the link to join us. We're talking about improving our processes so that we can scale our businesses. Tim's been an amazing mentor for myself. And if you have time, I would definitely take the time to join us later at 6:30. All right. So let me open it up for questions. If anything kind of came to mind. Did I miss any other questions that were there? Oh, let's see one. I would like to receive your contact to discuss. All right. So yeah, if you want to connect with me, the best way is the calendar, book a time, and we can chat about what you're working on. I'm definitely big on introducing entrepreneurship to youth. So if you're working with youth, would love to support that. All right. If a nonprofit cannot rely on grants, is there other funding to try? Yes, I would look at corporations and their sponsorship process. Most foundations, they like if a corporation has a foundation, they usually fund charities, but the company itself, they are looking for exposure for their company. So if you have a target market that resonates with who their clients are, they would sponsor and like it's more marketing dollars. So they would sponsor what you're doing in order to get their brand, so get brand awareness to the people that you work with. Again, you want to be selective with what types of companies you're really introducing your clientele to, but that's been an option that we've used where companies like what we're doing in a certain space. It matches the type of clientele that they want to know about their brand, and they will pay for a sponsorship. All right. And just to confirm, we'll get a copy of all the links that are added to the chat. Yes. And Tim mentions a big piece that I actually didn't talk a lot about is earned income programs. So even though you're doing community work and even though you're a nonprofit, you definitely do want to look at how to earn revenue with the work that you're doing. And it doesn't always have to be specifically the work. Like let's say you're doing free workshops for youth, you might not have to charge for that, but your expertise in another area, maybe around the same type of coaching, you could be offering to people that can afford it. And then that can subsidize and allow you to do it free for a certain segment of the population that can't afford it. So really look at using your expertise to generate revenue, and that would be considered a social enterprise. You want to be sustainable and not reliant on outside funding as much as you can. Again, the grants use that as bonus, but really you want to be looking at how to generate revenue from what you're doing as well. All right. And are the grant writers available only for nonprofits? No. If you reach out, we definitely work. I actually like to work more with for-profits. Nonprofits, it's a bit more tricky because I mean, I run a nonprofit and I'm like that headspace of writing grants just tires me out. So, but the for-profit side is more difficult to get grants. So I feel like I get more energy from finding grants from for-profits and creating those collaborations between for-profits and nonprofit companies. But yeah, we definitely can support for-profit and nonprofit. Just reach out to Empowered for X and we can see what fits for you best. And it's good to see you, Crystal. I got to come by Manifest Bookstore, beautiful space. If you do need books that are written by the Black community, check out Manifest Bookstore, 2411 Eglinton Avenue West, if that's right, Crystal. Do you want to let the people know? Where's she gone? Did she leave? All right. Again, it is past 2. So if you do have to run, feel free. I really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, 2411. Okay, so 2411 Eglinton Avenue West in Toronto, west of Little Jamaica. Definitely check it out. And if you have any additional questions, I'm here. I'll be lingering around for a few minutes. But again, I really appreciate you being present. It is not lost on me. And I thank you for showing up today. If I trust this has been valuable, or at least the information you can take back and use it right away. Again, look, and again, hey, Tim is in the house. We will see everybody this evening. The link is there. I'll put it again. Would love to see you. I'll be there later today, and looking forward to seeing everybody there. And let's grow our businesses and be truly focused for 2023. All right. So have a
Thank you
good
so
one.
much.
Oh, my pleasure. Sweet, sweet. Hey, Crystal. All right, and will it go out to our emails? Yes, it'll be emailed to you. All right, a question about how to write grants. So we typically do the working groups on picking a grant and writing it. So if you're looking for help with actually writing, look out for the next session that we do. This one is more the info session on what grants are available and lightly touching on how to write grants, but we typically go deeper into that with our working group. So that'll be in the email that goes out so you can get more support with the actual writing.
Usha has a question as well.
Yeah,
Will you help us proofread the OTF resilient proposal?
yes, I think we do have time to chat at 3. I was going to give you a call, Usha, so that I can look that over for you. But did she already leave? Oh, no, she's not.
And Crystal is saying that she found a few grants herself, but just needs some assistance regarding it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so definitely reach out to Empowered for X. They'd be able to kind of see which ones there are and how much support that you would need. Yeah. Mm, okay. Mm. All right. Thank you so much, Crystal. Appreciate you. All right. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your afternoon to your evening. Hopefully you'll see you at 6:30. Other than that, we'll see you at the next info session. All right, later.